Is Jason Gitlow? I'm sorry, I'm reading handwriting, and so I'm going to botch all sorts of names tonight, so I'm just going to issue a blanket apology in advance. I will probably mispronounce your names unless you print very clearly.
That's okay, Madam Chairman. I serve with this counselor who hasn't gotten my name right in 4 years. Good evening, Madam Chair, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Jason Groh. I'm a city councilor here in Gloucester. I'm also the chairman of the Budget Finance Subcommittee, and I'm a father of 3 children in the Gloucester Public Schools. As you are first of all, let me thank you again for taking this seriously enough to make your way to Gloucester to hear our voices. This means a lot to these people. It means a lot to me. As you are no doubt painfully aware during your budget deliberations at the state level, we are undergoing exceptional challenges in meeting the needs of the services of our communities. My subcommittee is deep in the review process of a budget that is contracting significantly from where our already spare spending was last year. Cuts are the order of the day, and yet there are places where the administration is asking us to actually increase spending. Even in the best of circumstances, we are bound by our responsibility to exercise due diligence and demand the administration prove the case that increases are fully justified. In times like these, however, the intensity of our scrutiny must be even more focused. We can hardly justify cutting one department for the benefit of another unless the benefit is clear and demonstrated needs outweigh the harm. We must turn to process, transparency, and accountability to ensure without doubt that our decision is in the best interest of the community. The legislature has been put in the very same position with regards to the increased funding that will be necessitated by the granting of the GCACS charter. This charter school will directly cost the Commonwealth of Massachusetts millions of additional dollars over the next several years. Dollars that will come not only from our community, but from yours as well. So as the state grapples with the staggering shortfalls in revenue, slashes in programs, increasing taxes, and employee layoffs, any discussion of increasing budgets with new expenditures must be met with a sharply critical eye towards whether process was fully, fairly, and legally followed, whether there was full transparency in the decision-making process, and who will be held accountable for the impacts of those decisions. In the case of this charter school approval, excuse me, it has become evident that process, transparency, and accountability were fundamentally ignored for the sake of political expedience. You will hear tonight and have heard examples of just how subverted this process was. You will wonder how, in the face of one set of facts, the BESC reached a completely opposite conclusion. You will wonder, as I do, who will ultimately be held accountable for this decision, the millions of dollars it will cost the Commonwealth and our community, and the repercussions that will be inflicted on the children of Gloucester, who will see further reductions in services and programs to accommodate the cost of this flawed process. It makes me wonder how all of our students would have benefited if our existing schools were granted that $5+ million in funding instead. As part of your due diligence, you will need to ask yourselves, why did the BESC ignore statutory requirements to have a member present during the public hearing process? Why did they then attempt to remedy their actions with an inappropriate retroactive suspension of that statutory requirement? I seem to recall that the legislature's job is to write the laws. Why did the commissioners issue a positive recommendation to the BESC despite a clearly articulated negative recommendation from the professional staff at the charter school office? Why was there no effort made to determine whether there was indeed any community need or demand for this school before committing us to an ongoing funding mandate that the city can ill afford and will have no provable benefit? Before you commit over $5 million in Commonwealth funding to this school, and before you commit our already cash-strapped community to the ongoing fiscal impacts of supporting this school, you will need to be absolutely sure that these questions are fully answered and that you accept the accountability of this decision. You have to be absolutely sure that other communities, perhaps your own, are not subjected to such an arbitrary, capricious, and damaging experience. Very quickly, I'll sum up. Faith in government is tenuous. We live and die by ensuring that our actions meet the high expectations of those we choose to serve. The public expects that process must be followed legally and fairly. Our actions as public officials must be transparent and justifiable. And we must assume the responsibility and be accountable for our actions and decisions. The sheer abandonment of process and this damaged result have shaken the faith of many of us who have pledged a commitment to make our community better despite the challenges of our time. I ask that you not let this dereliction of responsibility stand. I ask that the legislature withhold all funding for this school until such time as a full, fair, and transparent process is properly engaged. The citizens of Gloucester and the citizens of the Commonwealth deserve this much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to recognize that we've been joined by Representative Catherine Clark from Melrose. Thank you for joining us this evening. I would next like to recognize Mark Kennan from the Massachusetts Charter School Association.
members of the committee. My name is Mark Kennan. I'm the Executive Director of the Massachusetts Charter School Association. The association is the organization that represents the 61 charter schools operating in Massachusetts, and I guess I would call myself one of the leading advocates of the so-called charter school community that has been referenced here tonight. I'm here to express support for the application and the process that led to the granting of this Gloucester Arts Charter School. I do want to say that change is very painful, change can be very difficult, and those who promote change are often the subject of, if not disbelief and doubt, but derision and sometimes scorn. And so I do want to take a moment to acknowledge the bravery and the courage of the group, the small group, founding group in Gloucester, who has led the effort here to promote innovation and to promote reform in Gloucester. And I also want to take an opportunity to acknowledge the courage and bravery of Chairwoman Banta and Commissioner Chester in promoting the charter school agenda, the agenda of change and innovation in Massachusetts, which has been embraced by this legislature since 1993, and now in fact is one of the major priorities of our new President and Secretary of Education. But more importantly, I wanted to just tell a little story about charter schools and my role in charter schools. I'm actually, in addition to being the leader of the charter school advocacy movement in the state, I'm also the proud parent of 4 teenagers, 13, 15, 17, and 17, all of whom are charter school students at 2 charter schools 2.5 hours west of here in rural western Massachusetts. So I came here, I drove 2 hours and 45 minutes tonight, and we'll go back again afterwards tonight, not because it's my job, but because I thought I had a story to share. People talk about charter schools in the terms of big cities, in terms of Boston and urban areas, but the charter school movement in Massachusetts is alive and thriving in rural Massachusetts as well. In fact, as Senator O'Leary of the Cape, there are 3 thriving charter schools on Cape Cod and the islands. Where I come from in the Pioneer Valley, we have 8 charter schools stretching from the north in Greenfield south to Springfield. Some of those schools have been around for 13 years. Needs to say, when those schools chartered, there was controversy in those communities as well. What's happening in Gloucester is not unusual in Massachusetts. Every time a charter school is proposed and started, it generates controversy in the community, just like here. No worse, no less. But I'm here to say that after 15 or 13 years in Western Massachusetts, we have a thriving charter school community that is living in peace with school districts, and no district schools have collapsed because of the charter schools. The sky has not fallen. In fact, all the schools, I would argue, in Western Massachusetts have improved because the charter schools exist. So I want to talk as a parent, I want to talk to the parents of Gloucester and the people who have children in Gloucester and people who have children and more of their children in Gloucester. It's difficult to embrace change. The next couple of years in implementing change in your district is painful. 5, 10, 15 years down the road, such as Western Mass and Cape Cod, the community will be the better for it. Sometimes it takes vision to see change in the long run. I would encourage the community of Gloucester to embrace this opportunity for change, growth, and innovation in its community and embrace the existence of this new charter school. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to next recognize Val Gilman.
Senators, state reps, Chairperson Banta, Commissioner Chester, thank you so much for coming. I'm not going to talk about that hearing because I think we've all talked about that, but I will share with you as a parent and a school committee member in Gloucester, we will never recreate the passion that was in that auditorium on December 11th. I'd like to talk a little bit more about the day of the vote and focus just for a moment on the deliberation process. At the conclusion of 9 charter school opposition speeches and 2 in favor, I witnessed a brief deliberation process in which the board was instructed that there was no need to consider the financial implication for granting the charter or to weigh public input. The commissioner noted that testimony was unnecessary in this situation, and this so incensed one board member that he was moved